He has produced 18 state champions, produced 8 team state selections, and also is a part of the 41 conference champions in the last 52 years. Mark Peterson is a legend around Camelsport. I would like to welcome former Camelsport head wrestling coach, Coach P. Coach, what is it like to be one of the two coaches that is responsible for 41 conference titles?
Well, it's pretty special, Scotty. I mean, I grew up in Fond du Lac, which was about 15 miles from Camelsport, and I always idolized the program, and then to eventually take over this program that I admired so much was quite a thrill. I mean, I got a chance to coach with two Hall of Fame coaches in my career. One at Fond du Lac, Larry Marcianda, and then one at Camelsport with Jerry Sarge Markey. So it was pretty neat. I mean, Camelsport's a wrestling town. It's been a wrestling town for since its birth back in 1966. It just it caught on. It's a farming town. You got a lot of farm kids, a lot of kids that aren't afraid to work, and just kind of kept going, and then the success really snowballed over the years, I mean, especially with the conference winning streak, having not lost in over 30 years in the conference. That was fun, it was a good ride to keep that going. We lost the streak in 2001, but we still have had a lot of success at all the levels, regional, sectionals, and state.
What was that like to lose that match against Kiel in 2001?
Well, I could kind of see it coming. We weren't down, but we had a lot of young guys that were really good. That team actually was really really good when they were seniors, but we were mostly made up of sophomores that year and some good athletes, but they just didn't have enough experience. And I seen Kiel. Kiel was more of a senior dominated team that year, and so I knew we were going to have our hands full and trying to keep that streak going. So I could kind of see it, but it was just nuts. The atmosphere in that gym that night. I've never seen anything like that at a high school wrestling match that I was a part of as either a wrestler or a coach. There was tons of media there, and I mean the gym was full by 6 o'clock. I mean, Heel had brought like 3 fan buses, and Camelsport always does well supporting their teams at home meets and on the road. So it was crazy. It was just, I mean, you could barely hear yourself in that gym. It was so loud. Every match was just intense. I mean, the strategy, that was going on from our bench to the Kiel bench was pretty fun, because every little major decision or technical fall or pin was crucial in gaining some bonus points.
Yeah, I remember that night. The atmosphere was electric in there.
It was nuts. I mean, we were really jacked up. We had wrestled Lamira on Tuesday night, and Lamira was one of our big rivals from the old Flyway Conference. And they thought they were going to knock us off too, and we beat them. We wrestled really good, so we actually had a lot of momentum going into that Thursday night match 2 days later. But I don't know. It might have been 2 tough meets, and in a week might have caught up to us too. I don't know, but we had, would have won and win, and I had a couple guys that I thought were going to lose and won. So it's just nuts in those duels because you got 14 weight classes, and sometimes it doesn't come out to script how you plan it. So
You started coaching in Camelsport in 1988. You spent 7 years under the legend.
1988.
Yep, legend under the legend Jerry Sarge Marking. What did you learn from Sarge that helped you be successful during that stretch run that you had?
Well, I came from Fond du Lac, and when I finished up my college career up at UW Oshkosh, I went back home and did my student teaching back in Fond du Lac, and I coached with Larry Marcianda. So, Larry was the technician. He was the master of moves and how to teach wrestling. when I went out to Campbellsport, it was a little different. Sarge was more, let's just wrestle and brawl and beat him with toughness, and Sarge was a great motivator, and he would just get guys jacked up beyond belief. I actually had a great best of both worlds because I learned the moves from Marciana, and I learned how to just get kids mentally prepared for matches through Sarge, and that combination worked pretty good for me for many years, and it's still pretty good at Campbellsport. The guy that took over for me was actually our last state champion. Ryan Costello is the third head coach in the history, and he's just a real good go-getter, and I kind of handpicked him, and he's going to do a good job. We got some kids in the youth so we haven't really dipped off that much. We've done very we haven't had a ton of state champs lately, and conference champs. Have been a little bit more difficult just because they bounced us around at different conferences and made it a little tougher on us. We were actually the smallest school in this last conference that we were in, by a lot. I mean, there were some schools that were twice the enrollment as us. So, we've always had a target on our back. When you got a good wrestling program, Scotty, we still kind of carry that on our back. People know that we've got great tradition at Campbellsport, and to beat us, that's a big deal to certain schools.
Right. This is Scotty T, and you're watching the Scotty T Sports Experience podcast. We are here with Coach P, former head wrestling coach at Campbellsport High School. How does it feel to be in the 300-plus win club?
Well, you don't coach, and until you get to the end and you start getting those numbers. I remember when I got my 200, that was kind of a special night because my son was wrestling for me during that time, and we knocked off Sheboygan Falls at our place, and it was kind of an upset. They were kind of the favorite, and we just wrestled out of our minds that night, and that was my 200th. And I think then you start going, holy cow, that's a lot of wins, and I mean, you gotta get probably 10, 15 wins a year, for 20, 30 years. So, I'm pretty proud of that, but, I really don't look at that stuff, Scotty. I mean, I like looking at more of the champions that we built, the conference champions, the state champions, the teams that we sent to state, stuff like that, I think is more important to me. But getting to 300 was kind of cool. It's kind of a milestone in wrestling, because there's not many guys that reach that. So I just feel pretty honored to be in the company with a lot of great coaches in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, you had a great career. What team was the toughest to have a duel against?
Well, it kind of varied, because like I said, we had dominated the Flyweight Conference for like 30 years. We went 200-0 in the Flyweight Conference, and then they switched us over to a new conference, and then we kind of started a rivalry with Kiel, who would eventually end the streak. But it's been weird. Like I said, everybody kind of gears up for Campbellsport, and we made a lot of other programs better, I think, because they wanted to beat us. And then eventually after that, it was Kewaskum, and Campbellsport are only 5 miles apart. So, any sporting event between those two schools is just crazy, because everybody knows everybody, a lot of people work together and stuff. So we had a good rivalry with Kewaskum there for many years. And then just recently, we had some good duels with Ripon and Winneconne in the new conference that we were just in the last couple of years. And like I said, their programs got better. because of us. I think a lot of times that teams, they get so motivated that they're putting that extra time in. Their coaches are doing those little things to get kids some off season wrestling and get them in the weight room and stuff like that. Those little things really add up, and in wrestling you need numbers. You need 14 guys to fill 14 different weight classes. So those have been the biggest teams. I mean, Lemira was always our big one back in the flyweight. I mean, the Lemira and Camel Sport meets were always a packed house, and we're actually going to be going back into the Wisconsin Flyweight Conference. So the Lemira Camel Sport dual meets will be renewed next year, and it should be fun because they're pretty good yet, and we got some pretty good kids coming up. So
Yeah, definitely. I remember wrestling in Lemira a couple times at a couple tournaments. That was a lot of fun.
yeah, I mean, just they've got a legendary Hall of Fame coach as well. Cripps, I think he's got probably 400 career wins, but he's been coaching about 40 years. Dave Meyer just a tremendous job over there. He actually turned it over, but he's still kind of helping out behind the scenes, just doing some volunteer coaching. And yeah, those were wild, Scott. I mean, the bragging rights, for the area, because they're only about 8 miles from Campbellsport too. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into the flyweight because we kind of lost that for a little bit. We kind of got sent to some schools that were farther away, and it's hard to get crowds when you got to travel an hour and a half compared to like the schools that are right in your backyard only, you know, it's been nice to just have a little freedom. I last year I did youth wrestling. I coached the club team, and I had the little kids like kindergarten, first, and second graders, and it was just a blast. To go from coaching intense high school wrestlers to teaching kids their first stand up and their first switch or their first pinning hold. It was pretty fun, and then I went to a couple kids tournaments, and I like that. I teach elementary phy ed, so I've got a pretty good rapport with elementary age kids, and it's always kind of neat to see kids develop at that age, and then get a chance to watch them blossom when they get older and get into high school. It's like you can kind of remember that kid when they're growing up. I mean, sometimes kids don't get good until they're sixth, seventh, eighth grade, or even into high school, before they really start clicking. I mean, wrestling's a sport that is quite unique. I mean, some kids are good at it right away, and some kids it takes a long time before it really clicks in and they develop a lot of confidence in their ability.
Right. So, Camel Sword had some of the best entrances in the state. What was behind that? How did that start?
Well, like just kind of what I was talking about, Scott. It kind of goes back to the youth program. Camel Sport had a youth program started in 1974, and nobody had youth programs back then. Sarge was way ahead of his time. He got into the elementary schools and got kids into his youth program, and they had a youth tournament, and they had a wrestling club, and nobody was doing that. I mean, a lot of schools, were trying to catch up to him, and they didn't know how. Well, Sarge had the secret. It was like get little kids wrestling young, and he'd get 100, 150 kids out for a youth program in a town of 2,000 people, which is phenomenal. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, Scotty. Because then you had brothers. You had brothers and uncles and cousins, and it became a family thing. A lot of the really good wrestlers in the Campbell Sport dynasty years of like the 70s. You had the Gruber family, you had the Nargis family, you had the Dexters. it snowballed. You had two, three, four brothers wrestling, and you had dads that were wrestling, and then their kids started wrestling, and it just a lot of people take pride in the program. We have a lot of dads that come back and help out with our youth, and we have a lot of ex wrestlers that show up at practice, and come up and roll around and show the kids some stuff, and those guys are there on Saturdays cheering our kids. Um, that's really, I think, what makes your program a dynasty after a while is when you get people involved in like that. I didn't do it all by myself. I had a lot of really good people in the wrestling club working for me. I had Dan Heisdorf and Dion Grisar for my assistants for like over 20 years. I mean, it's hard to keep good guys like that involved, because coaching takes a lot of time away, from your family, and it takes a lot of time away from just things that you might want to do. So I was really lucky, Scotty. I tell you, I had a lot of good people around me, and I thank every one of them every time I see them, because they've made they've made our program successful, and they helped me out a lot, and I want to make sure that I always throw that out there, that those people are just as important as I was. I mean, granted, I was in the room every night, and I was on the bus every Saturday, going to tournaments, and you're the one that's getting all the phone calls, and you're the one that's talking to the media, and you got all of that to deal with. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of people that make it click.
Right. Your last year was 2019. So what is next for Coach P?
Well, like I said, I really enjoy coaching youth wrestling. I always do an after school program. I've done that for over 30 years, and we get 100 kids in just that. And then last year I coached the club team. That's kids that are into it a little bit more, and we had 60 kids up there for that. So my goal is just to feed our new coach Ryan Costello, feed him some wrestlers, keep our junior high program strong. And just try to promote it. I mean, wrestling's a tough sport. It's tough to get kids out, because we're competing against basketball, and basketball is always a little bit more glamorous than wrestling. That's been my goal. I'm probably got a couple years of teaching left, and then after that, I don't know. I've really got a lot of options. I'm thinking of maybe opening up a wrestling school, maybe. I don't know. I've got some ideas. I'm going to definitely help in some way. Um, it just I'd like to give back to my wife a little bit. I've been gone a lot from her over the last 30 some years. So, I want to do some stuff with her, and take some trips, and go to Oklahoma City and see you, and
There you go.
play a little one-on-one and kick your butt. Hey,
Yeah, definitely. Well, Coach, thank you for coming on. Yeah,
hey, thanks, Scott.
it was a
You did it.
pleasure. Uh,
Absolutely.
you've been a big inspiration in my life, and I know you've helped a lot of people through wrestling, and I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, so many guys that I've wrestled for, or that have wrestled for me, like you, like yourself, are like friends of mine now, and that's what really is the kicker for me as a coach. I I really cherish those friendships that I have now with some of my guys that have wrestled for me, and I mean, I golf with guys that wrestle for me in the summer, and I hang out with guys and do stuff with them, and it's fun. And I think it's probably fun for them too, because it's like you develop a bond on the mat, and then when it's all over, you still wrestling still gives you that bond and that friendship and those memories.
Absolutely. This is Scotty T signing off. Thanks for joining.